everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real PR with me, Fiona Scott. I really hope you're having a good week, month, year so far. What have you been up to? God, it's been so busy here at Scott Media. I'm so lucky to work with so many brilliant people, and I'm joined by one of those lovely people today where we're going to talk business, PR of course, but also the world of social care. This will be very relevant to the UK, but I'm sure it will resonate with you wherever you are in the world. So I'd like to welcome Janet Shreeve of Shreeve Care Services.
Oh, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure, as always, to be here and talking to you. And whilst actually you always say about the way you welcome your clients, working with you has been a revelation in so many ways. And I have to say, yes, we're not far off 2 years, you know. That's scary. And it really has been amazing. And I think where we've come from, where we're going to, is just amazing, really exciting, exciting.
Thank you, Janet. I think one thing that really inspires me about you, Janet, is you are driven, you are passionate, and you never consider age.
Absolutely not. At 68, I have no intention of retiring. First of all, I mean, you live on virtually nothing now if you retire, unless you're very, very lucky with a very large pension. But most people aren't. And in fact, I was talking about that with someone fairly recently about how, you know, the people with the big pensions, the world is changing. We're all having to work longer. But age is totally and utterly irrelevant. And it's all about the way you are and the way you approach things. And actually, I do think as one gets older, you have a different perspective on things anyway. And you are way more, in some respects, you're more willing to say what you think. And in other respects, you're almost willing to sort of step back and let things happen and let's see what's happened rather than going in with both feet all the time, that I probably would have done 20 to 30 years ago.
So tell me, how did Shreeve Care Services come about before I was in your world, as it were,
Okay.
Janet?
Well, actually, we've known one another a little bit longer than
we
that.
We have.
Actually, but... how did it come about? It came about, my whole life always seems to have been a bit of a lurch from one thing to another. I used to teach Italian, my degree is in Italian, so obviously I used to do a lot of teaching in the past in Kent, moved to Bristol in 2010 and didn't think I'd carry on working in care, worked with Care UK and then set up Noble Living Care with Paul Watson, who's become not just an ex-colleague, but a really, really, really good friend and has been incredibly supportive of me over the years. But Shreeve Care came about in a very bizarre way. I thought I would be working for a company for the rest of my life until I did decide to retire. Unfortunately, I found myself working for an organisation that was far from professional. And whilst I won't go into exactly what happened, because it probably isn't appropriate, it really spurred me on to think, what do I do? And I was 66 at the time. And at 66, you don't seem to be terribly employable. And people don't necessarily want to know. And I knew I couldn't afford to not work. So it was, okay, let's set up Shreeve Care Services, see where it goes. My undying passion with care has always been to advise people as to what's out there for care, because people have no idea. You have no idea what your choices are, finance, anything you want to talk about, because it's an emergency service, isn't it?
It's very much, it is a quagmire. You think you will know,
yeah,
but until you're in it or you're dealing with it for a loved one,
you
really don't know at all. And you don't know what your rights are or what you're entitled to, what you're not entitled to.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I set it up, it was a bit, well, let's see where it goes. I do some business development with a couple of care providers as well. And in fact, one of those has recently set up, as well as doing, and I'm talking about Bosun Care, as well as doing their supported living service, have also now set up a living care service with an ex-colleague of mine, and it's going from strength to strength as well. And what's really interesting is they're potentially taking on a client that actually is a client of a care home, of the owner of a care home, but they want the mother to stay at home and have living care, which I think is really lovely. So it's taken on lots of different developments. And as well as that, we sort of help with power of attorney. We also help with getting people onto frameworks for different things. And that in itself becomes more and more and more complex as time goes by. So it really has developed in all sorts of ways I never would have thought it would have done. And I know obviously we're talking about PR, but the one thing that I have thought many, many, many times over the years is the importance of networking as well and getting to know people, because I never go to a networking event thinking I'm going to come out with a client. I always assume
Nor
I'm
me.
not.
Nor me.
But you never know who knows somebody, and you never know who says, "Oh my goodness, I really wish I'd known about your service," and then other things come from that. But I have been really, really lucky. I've got to know so many different people. I've really enjoyed. I mean, it's not been without its stresses, but I have really enjoyed the 2.5 years that I've been doing this. It's been amazing.
And through working with you, I've learned a lot about social care, and you're not shy in saying what you think. You are willing to be political. Tell us why, Janet, because many business owners get very scared about that, but you aren't.
I'm not scared because the thing is, I suppose it's probably to a certain degree me getting older as well. You suddenly realise that you're not that far from the stage when you might need care. And I did go through some of it with my own mother, obviously. But I don't think people realise because social care is the Cinderella. We're not the NHS. We're not the thing that everybody talks about. We are just not. And I think so many providers are struggling, and with obviously the national insurance increase, it will put a lot of the smaller providers out of business. And the other thing, as you know, I have been far less reticent about talking about is the fact that when you go onto a framework with a local authority, care providers have to give 1% back of whatever they charge the local authority. 1% has to go back to them as almost like a thank you for giving us the work in the first place. And bearing in mind that local authorities are strapped for cash, they're not able to pay more money. They have no money to pay anymore. And suddenly you sit there thinking, well, I don't go into a shop, or I mean, with all due respect, I don't pay your invoice and then you say, well, actually, I'll give you 1% back, or I'll have 1% back for whatever. It doesn't work that way. But with care, it does. And it really is quite frightening.
Do you get annoyed then when you see stories, I guess, about bad providers or people raking it in care when they run multiple homes? And most of those stories probably have got truth in them. You can't just make that stuff up.
No.
But from working with you, the majority of care providers are not in that position, are they?
No. There are I know so many care providers who go above, beyond, do whatever they can in order to provide a really good service. I'm fortunate enough to be on the board of Care and Support West as their living care advisor, because obviously that's where the bulk of my work in the past as a provider was done. But I was on a meeting fairly recently where one of the providers of one of the biggest care home groups in Bristol, they used to provide beds for discharge to assess. And Bristol decided to stop it. And then the day after, they closed and said that, no, they weren't going to be providing these beds anymore. They weren't going to pay for them. They were on the phone to the same company asking them to provide because they had no beds to send people to. Well, that makes no sense. And the thing is, it affects absolutely everybody, because it's not just the business, it's all the people that work in it. So suddenly, oh, you haven't got a job. It's not there. And it really is so frustrating. So frustrating. And this is what we deal with all the time. And you just want to say to people, do you not realise the importance of getting care in order that would help the NHS? If you've got the right care, people can get out of hospital. But if you don't, you're stuck.
Yeah, because you can't just put older people or people with care needs,
No.
whatever their age, you can't just dump them back at home.
No.
Can
Not
you?
at all.
So they bed block.
No, exactly. Or alternatively, the care that is provided is not sufficient for the person anyway, because I always think when I look at a 45-minute call for whatever client it might be, and I actually timed myself one morning just to see how long it would take me to get up, get myself dressed, get out and go off and do whatever I was going to do. I can't do it in less than an hour. Not really. I mean, I can, but I've probably forgotten to brush my hair or not had a shower or something. And yet we expect somebody in their 80s and 90s to get out of bed, to be showered, to have had their breakfast in 45 minutes. It's unrealistic. And I think this is another part of it that I find so frustrating. Everything has to be timed to the nth degree. And as you know, I work with a client who has significant needs. And when I was talking to them, a call that's been allocated for 45 minutes actually physically takes the carer an hour and 20 minutes, and that's on a good day. But whether that care provider gets paid for the 1 hour and 20 minutes is another matter, because obviously the local authority doesn't like the fact that that's gone over. So I'm not sure how that works. I probably should find out, but I'm sure they won't get paid for the 1 hour and 20 minutes.
No, but there are good carers who would do it anyway, because that's what's needed.
But that's it, exactly right. It's the fact that carers, I mean, most of them, I won't say all of them, but most of them are amazing. But then that's the same with whatever business you're in. You have good teachers, you have bad teachers, whatever business it is. But most of the carers I've dealt with over the years have been so dedicated and really gone above and beyond. And I think I've said this many times. During COVID, we didn't have clients that actually got COVID because they had living carers all the time. So they weren't having people coming in and out. And even post-COVID, if you think about it, the less people you've got going in and out with germs, particularly if you've got, it might not just necessarily be somebody that's elderly, it could be somebody with, has had a stroke, who's got heart condition, whatever it might be. You don't want lots of people coming in and out all the time who are bringing their germs. And the other thing that I guess, which I also harp on about, is the fact it's the continuity of care. People want to know who's going to come in and look after them. And is it going to be the same person? Are they going to have 10 different people during the course of the week? Or is it going to be somebody that actually gets to know what they want and what they're like? And it really is. It's I could go on and on, so I probably should.
No, we had experience of that with my father-in-law, not quite knowing who the carers were from 1 minute to the next. But I think we should roll back and explain to people who are listening in, what is live-in care?
Okay. Live-in care is not 24-hour care. That's what NHS refer to it, because I've been to enough meetings where they do. Live-in care is where a carer will live with the client. So yes, they are there 22 out of 24 hours because they have to have a 2-hour daily break. It doesn't mean that the carer can be up all night. I mean, ideally, most carers will get up a couple of times to deal with the client. But if it's more than that, really it requires extra care. But how it works is you go to discuss with the client what that client's needs are. And the whole point of it is that it's not just the care. The biggest part, and we used to find this time and time and time again, is the companionship. So the companionship is there. So the carer is there 7 days a week. They might do 3 or 4 weeks at a stretch. And then they would change over, and then the second carer would come along and do a similar sort of thing. But the actual hours that they work are based during the day, but it's not timed. So if Mrs. Smith, for argument's sake, wants to get up at 7 o'clock one day, but actually the following day she wants to get up at 8:30, that's a choice. And you've got that carer there who will work around it. So they will get them up when it's convenient for them. The other thing that a lot of living carers do, and providing obviously the client is able to do so and it's safe, we'll take them out. We'll take them to the garden centre. We'll take them to do a bit of shopping. It's really bringing people into the community as much as is humanly possible. So their time is not constantly clock watching. And making sure that the client feels safe and actually is able to stay in their own home for as long as possible.
And what about the people listening or watching might think, well, that's going to be really, really expensive. Tell us about that.
It certainly is no more expensive than a care home, and in many cases it can be cheaper. One of the clients that I work with, their living care starts at about £1,100 a week. I mean, it does depend, obviously, on the severity of the client and what's needed and how many hours are expected to be done. And obviously, if somebody is on bedbound, then there's obviously more involvement. But fundamentally, it's not as expensive as people think. And also, often as people have living care, particularly if they've come out of hospital, I've always think if you can come out of hospital with a living care package rather than going into a care home, first of all, you're going to get better quicker in your own home. Secondly, you're going to have somebody who really knows what you're doing and they are there to support you. So there's less chance of a fall or anything else. And if all goes to plan, then the care can be dropped down a little bit and, they can be brought back into doing what they want to do. That's the whole thought behind it. But obviously, it's not suitable for everybody in the same way as a care home isn't suitable for everybody. But people should be given that choice, which under the 2014 Care Act is exactly what they should be given, but doesn't always happen.
So really what I'm getting from this is social care is a Cinderella service, and it's almost like living care as a hidden model within that service. Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to move away from that a bit and talk to you about when we first met. When did you think PR was a tool that you were going to use? How did that happen? Excuse me.
I can do many things, but I'm not great at doing my own PR. And I think PR is so important because you need someone who can take that step back, can look at what you do, offer ideas for what you haven't thought of doing, deal with one's social media, which of course I love so much. Because I'm not of that generation. It's not. I mean, I am using it. I do understand the need, but if you've got someone who's got your back, who actually says, "Yeah, I'm going to support your service, whatever it is, whatever business you've got," but I recognise that without PR, you can't do everything, and it's a very specialist service. In the same way, I wouldn't expect someone to come in and do my service about care if they didn't know anything about it. So why should I think I can do PR? Because I don't really know enough about it either. It's important to have somebody who knows what they're doing. It really is. Because also they take that much more objective look compared to what I would do. And they look at different things and, well, what about this? What about that? I probably would never have even thought of it. Definitely not. And the thing I've found also is you can be really negative about a lot of things a lot of the time. People do not want to see every bit of negativity that goes on within the care sector. You've got to look at a lot of the positives as well. And I think that's what comes with PR. So as much as you'll say, well, what about the challenges with this? What about the challenges with that? You will also say, and let's have some positives as well. And I think that's really good.
And what impacts have you seen it? What opportunities have come your way that you think are related to just to being more visible?
Well, I think probably it's getting to know what I do is now becoming more visible to a lot of people I would never have reached beforehand. Certainly as time's going on. I mean, interestingly, I've got a fairly recent client that has come via one of the PR pieces you did. And she actually said to me, she said, I've been looking for someone like you for ages. Now, and that was because it was a piece that you did about the advisory service, which is very, very dear to my heart. And if that, all it needs is sort of one person to find and then another person and another person. So I think that the advisory service and the PR around that, I would never have done and got the clients if you hadn't come along and done it.
But also for you, I think that you're one of those clients where it's not just a transactional thing for you, business. Your passion, you've got a passion and mission that sits behind it. And for someone like me, that's ideal.
But it's also the fact that as an ex-teacher, you never stop learning. And I think people almost are frightened to learn and frightened to say, well, I don't really understand that or how it works. And you also come away from whatever day I've done with you, whether it, it's been your PR days in the past, or obviously I wouldn't be doing my podcast if it wasn't for you. All of those sort of things, you come away and think, oh, okay, I hadn't thought about that. Or it puts a different perspective onto what I do. And I just don't think I would have had a fraction of what I've had over the last 2.5 years if it hadn't been for having the PR behind it. And the other thing that you did, and I think I've probably said this before, but the other thing you did, which I always remember, I came to you 6 months before you actually came on board, and you said, it's not the right time. And I remember being a bit, oh, okay, fine, yeah, she doesn't talk to me anymore. And actually, it was the best thing ever because you were absolutely right. And you could have actually turned around, yeah, I'll take your money, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But that's the thing, it's having the integrity behind it and trusting that person that I trust you to have my best interest of my business behind what you do.
It is, PR is very trusting.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? And it's also, people often think it's pink and fluffy, but actually, if there's any toxicity or anything going wrong in your business or something you're trying to cover up, having someone like me will find it out very quickly.
Oh, yes.
We found that too between us with various scenarios.
Yeah, definitely. And also, it pushes you in a direction you wouldn't necessarily have done that if it wasn't somebody behind you advising you about how to do it. And as I said, I think it's also the realization that whatever you do, whatever business you have, and particularly as a sole trader, although I'm a limited company, but you're always that, oh my goodness, I hadn't thought about that. And you will say to me, well, you might want to talk to so-and-so because they would do this, this and this. And if I would never have known that if I was just on my own. And it's really easy living on my own as well and doing the work that I do to forget about other parts that you will have come up with and that will have actually made sense when it goes forward.
And you have got some plans for doing other things.
Oh, yes. Very
sort of around
exciting.
Health and wellness. So just tell us about that.
Okay. We are in May and September. We are running Enlightening Escapes, it's called. We are running 2 in May. The first one is around burnout. So we have a wonderful lady that I've known for many, many years, who has also run retreats herself in the past. She's from Malta, and she has her own salon near Bristol. But she does wonderful massages, wonderful treatments, very, very sort of organic, really understands, it's not just about sticking a bit of makeup on, it's all about the way you feel and helping people feel better. And her son is fabulous, and he does sound baths, and that's what he's coming to do. It's so relaxing and takes you to a very different place. And that's the first retreat. And the second retreat is more of sort of maybe, a lady's life after 40, when maybe things have happened, maybe they've had a breakup, divorce, relationship issues. And that's the second retreat, along with a lady who does colour and style to make you feel better. But for both retreats, they're going to be in Italy, and they're down in Puglia. And we have the wonderful Sophie Grigson, who's going to be doing some cooking for us. So the food is pretty good. Obviously, I know the area quite well. We are looking to do 2 further ones in September. More news about that further down the line. But one may well be a business one.
Marvellous. That sounds brilliant. Well, the others sound fine. Oh, I've got to impress you, Janet, because I know you're fluent in Italian. Un gelato, per favore.
Un gelato, per favore.
See? I'm rubbish at even that, but at least I had a go.
It's really funny because my friends in Italy, it's a bit of a joke that I've got a really northern accent in Italian, which I don't really notice because obviously when I learned Italian, I spent a lot of time in the north. But they take the mick because they think I've got a really posh accent in Italian, which I don't think I have, but they do. I mean, obviously it has got a slight English twang, but it's like everybody says gratias, and it's not gratias, it's grazie. And
Grazie. Yeah, I'll keep practicing. The
best thing to do is just to say prego. And because I always used to giggle, going back to the Italian side, I saw when I was in Italy, when I was studying, Grease came out along with Saturday Night Fever. And I had never seen those films in English until I came back, probably 10 years afterwards. And I used to giggle because every time there's a lovely swear word in the middle of Grease that nobody ever realises when they're singing it. which is even better.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you're going to have to message Janet
Yeah,
to
I might
find out
message
about
that
that one. Yeah, to find out about that one. Oh, Janet, it's been brilliant talking to you. So, look, for the retreats then, how do people find out about that?
At the moment, their best way is to contact me through Shreeve Care, because everything's sort of coming via that. So if anybody's interested, janet.shreeve@shrevecareservices.co.uk. The website, we're finally sort of doing a few bits to that. So as soon as that comes out, I'll be able to give you all the details for that.
Lovely. And where can people find Janet around care issues or care support?
My website, shrevecareservices.co.uk. Obviously, again, my email, janet.shreeve@shrevecareservices.co.uk, or telephone 07827324590.
Thank you very much, Janet.
Thank
you so much.
It's
Thank
been lovely.
you.
Thank you very much indeed for asking me.
Well, everyone, I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Janet and I chewing the fat about business and the more serious matter of social care, and also finding out about her retreats coming up this year. You know where to find her. If you want to find me, it's scottmedia.uk, or you can go onto Facebook and join Fiona Scott's PR tribe. If you mention this episode, then you can get in really quickly. Until next time, thank you for watching.